Thus spake the royal Idomen. Iliad obeyed, and to his chariot presently the wounded Greek conveyed. Presently the wounded Greek conveyed the son of Asclepius. Thus spake the royal Idomen. Iliad obeyed, and to his chariot presently the wounded Greek conveyed the son of Aesculapius, the great physician. Iliad obeyed, and to his chariot presently the wounded Greek conveyed the son of Aesculapius, the great physician. Iliad obeyed, and to his chariot presently the wounded Greek conveyed the son of Aesculapius, the son of Aesculapius, the great physician. To fleet they flew. Cebriones perceived the slaughter done by Ajax on the other troops, and spake to Hector thus. Whilst we encounter Grecians here, Hector thus. Whilst we encounter Grecians here, stern Telamonius is yonder raging, turning up in heaps our horse and men. I know him by his spacious shield. Let us turn chariot then, where both of horse and foot the fight most hotly is proposed in mutual slaughters. Hark, their threats from cries are never closed. Hark, their threats in mutual slaughters. Hark, their throats from cries are never closed. Their throats from cries are never closed. This said with his shrill scourge. This said with his shrill scourge he struck the horse that fast ensued, stung with lashes, tossing shields and carcasses imbrued. The chariot tree that fast ensued, stung with lashes, tossing shields and carcasses imbrued. The chariot tree was drowned in blood, and the arches by the seat dispurpled from the horse's hoofs, and from the wheelbands beat. Great Hector longed to break the ranks and startle their close fight, who horribly amazed the Greeks and plied their sudden fright. With busy weapons, ever winged, his lance, sword, weighty stones, yet charged he other leaders' bands, not dreadful Telamons, with whom he wisely shunned foul blows. But Jove, that weighs above all human powers, to Ajax' breast divine repressions drove, and made him shun who shunned himself. He ceased from fight, amazed, cast on his back his sevenfold shield, and round about him gazed like one turned wild, looked on himself in his distinct retreat. Knee before knee did scarcely move, as when from herds of neat whole threaves of boars and mongrels chase a lion skulking near. Loath he should taint the well-prized fat of any stall-fed steer, consuming all the night in watch, he greedy of his prey, oft thrusting on is oft thrust off, So thick the javelins play on his bold charges, and so hot the burning firebrands shine, which he, though horrible, abhors about his glowing eye, and early his great heart about his glowing eye, and early his great heart retires. So Ajax from the foe, for fear their fleet should be inflamed, 'gainst his swollen heart did go. As when a dull mill ass comes near a goodly field of corn, kept from the birds by children's cries, the boys are overborne by his insensible approach, and simply he will eat, about whom many wands are broke, and still the children beat, and still the children beat, and still the children beat, and still the self-providing ass doth with their weakness bear, not stirring till his paunch be full, and scarcely then will stir. So the huge son of Telamon amongst the Trojans fared, bore showers of darts upon his shield, yet scorned to fly as scared, and so kept softly on his way. Nor would he mend his pace for all their violent pursuits, that still did arm the chase with singing lances. But at last, when their cur-like presumes more urge the more forborne, his spirits did rarefy their fumes, and he revoked his active strength, turned head, and did repel the horse troops that were new made in, twixt whom they fight grew fell. And by degrees he stole retreat, yet with such puissant stay that none could pass him to the fleet. Puissant. The fight grew fell, and by degrees he stole retreat, yet with such puissant stay that none could pass him to the fleet. In both the army's sway he stood, and from strong hands received sharp javelins on his shield, where many struck, thrown on before, many fell short, where many struck his shield, where many stuck, thrown on before, many fell short in field, ere the white body they could reach, and stuck, as telling how they purposed to have pierced his flesh. His peril pierced now the eyes of Prince Eurypylus, Evamon's famous son, who came close on, and with his dart struck dupe Apaseon. As telling how they purposed to have pierced his flesh. His peril pierced now the eyes of Prince Eurypylus, Evamon's famous son, who came close on, and with his dart struck Duke Apaseon, whose surname was Phociades. Apaseon, whose surname was Phociades, even to the concrete blood that makes the liver, on to the earth. Phociades, even to the concrete blood that makes the liver, on the earth. Even to the concrete blood that makes the liver, On the earth out gushed his vital flood. Eurypylus made in the liver. On the earth out gushed his vital flood. Eurypylus made in and eased his shoulders of his arms, which Paris, seeing, he drew his bow and wreaked in part the harms of his good friend Phociades. His arrow he let fly, that smote Eurypylus and brake in his attainted thigh. That smote Eurypylus and brake in his attainted thigh. Then took he troop to shun black. Then took he troop to shun black death, and to the flyers cried. I don't know if we have a Eurypylus. We do not. Okay. Eurypylus, what do we want for him? Princes and leaders of the Greeks. And to the flyers cried, Princes and leaders of the Greeks, stand and repulse the tide of this our honor-racking chase. Ajax is drowned in darts, I fear past scape. Drowned in darts, I fear past scape. Turn, honored friends, help out his venturous parts. Thus spake the wounded Greek. The sound cast on their backs their shield. Wounded Greek. The sound cast on their backs their shields, and raised their darts, to whose relief Ajax his person wields. To whose relief Ajax his person wields. Then stood he to whose relief Ajax his person wields. Then stood he firmly with his friends, retiring their retire. And thus both hosts indifferent joined, the fight grew hot as fire. Now had Iliad sweating steeds. Now had Iliad sweating steeds brought him and his hurt friend amongst their fleet. Aeacides, that wishly did intend, standing astern his tall-necked ship, their fleet, and his hurt friend amongst their fleet. Now had Iliad sweating steeds brought him and his hurt friend amongst their fleet, as fire. Now had Iliad sweating steeds brought him and his hurt friend amongst their fleet. Aeacides, that wishly did intend, standing astern his tall-necked ship, how deep the skirmish drew amongst the Greeks, and with what ruth the insecution grew. Saw Nestor bring Machaon hurt, and from within did call his friend Patroclus, who like Mars in form celestial came forth with first sound of his voice, did spring of his decay. With first sound of his voice, came forth with first sound of his voice, first spring of his decay, and asked his princely friend's desire. I don't think we have Patroclus yet. We do not. Dear friend, said he, this day, I doubt. His princely friend's desire. Dear friend, said he, this day I doubt not will Oh, this is Achilles anyway. It is not Patroclus yet, but we do need a Patroclus voice for when he talks to Nestor and other parts. Let us ask some prophet, priest, or prove some dream interpreter. first spring of his decay, and asked his princely friend's desire. "Dear friend," said he, "this day I doubt not will enforce the Greeks to swarm about my knees." "Dear friend," said he, "this day I doubt not will enforce the Greeks to swarm about my knees. I see unsuffered need employed in their extremities. Go, sweet Patroclus, and inquire of old Iliades, whom he brought wounded from the fight. Old Iliades, whom he brought wounded from the fight. By his back parts I guess it is Machaon, but his face I could not well descry. They passed me in such earnest speed. Patroclus presently obeyed his friend and ran to know. Right, the reason I thought it was Patroclus is because in the actual text, or in other translations, and I'm pretty sure in the Greek, Patroclus has lines of dialogue where he says, like, "What is it now, Achilles," type of thing, before Achilles speaks, which is, I was trying to think, like, why did I think that was supposed to be Patroclus? Is Machaon, but his face I could not well descry. They passed me in such earnest speed. Patroclus presently obeyed his friend, and ran to know. They now descended were, and Nestor's squire Eurymedon the horses did ungear. Themselves stood near the extremest shore to let the gentle air dry up their sweat. Then to the tent where Hecamed the fair. By the same logic that Diomedes becomes Diomed, Hecamede would become Hecamed, I guess. Okay. Dry up their sweat. Then to the tent where Hecamed the fair set chairs, and for the wounded prince a potion did prepare. This Hecamed, by war's hard fate, fell to old Nestor's share. When Thetis' son sacked Tenedos, she was the princely seed of worthy King Arsinous. She was the princely seed of worthy King Arsinous, and by the Greeks decreed the prize of Nestor. Since all men in council he surpassed. First a fair table she opposed, of which the feet were graced with bluish metal mixed with black, and on the same she put a brass fruit dish, in which she served a wholesome onion cut, for pittance to the potion, and honey newly wrought, and bread, the fruit of sacred meal. Then to the board she brought a right fair cup with gold studs driven, which Nestor did transfer from Pylos, on whose swelling sides 4 handles fixed were, and upon every handle sat a pair of doves of gold, some billing and some pecking meat. 2 gilt feet did uphold the antique body. And withal so weighty was the cup, that being proposed brimful of wine, one scarce could lift it up. Yet Nestor drunk it in with ease, spite of his year's respect. In this the goddess-like fair dame a potion did confect, with good old wine of Pramnius, and scraped into the wine cheese made of goat's milk, and on it spursed flour exceeding fine. In this sort for the wounded lord the potion she prepared, and bade him drink. For company with him old Nestor shared. Thus physically quenched they thirst, and then their spirits revived with pleasant conference. And now Patroclus, being arrived, made stay at the entry of the tent. Old Nestor, seeing it, rose and received him by the hand, and fain would have him sit. He set that courtesy aside, excusing it with haste, since so have him sit. He set that courtesy aside, excusing it with haste, since his much to be reverenced friend set him to know who passed, wounded with him in chariot, so swiftly through the shore. Whom now, said he, I see and know, and now can stay no more. You know, good father, our great friend. Whom now, said he, I see and know, and now can stay no more. You know, good father, our great friend is apt to take offense. Whose fiery temper will inflame sometimes with innocence. All right, we gotta backdate that as, let's call that 2430 Patroclus. With innocence, he answered, when will Peleus' son some royal pity show? Let's just double check Nestor's voice. O gods, he answered, when will Peleus' son some royal pity show on his wounded countrymen? Ah, is he yet to know how much affliction tires our host? How is our especial aid tainted with lances? At their tents are miserably laid. How our especial aid tainted with lances, at their tents are miserably laid. Ulysses, Diomed, our king Eurypylus, Machaon, all hurt, and all our worthy friends. Yet no compassion can supple thy friend. Our worthy Eurypylus, Machaon, all hurt, and all our worthiest friends. Yet no compassion can supple thy friend's friendless breast. Doth he reserve his eye till our fleet burn, and we ourselves one after other die? Alas, my forces are not now as in my younger life. Oh, would to God that I had strength. Oh, would to God that I had that. Oh, would to God I had that strength I used in the strife. Oh, would to God I had that strength I used in the strife. Young life. Oh, would to God I had that strength I used in the strife betwixt us and the Ilians, for oxen to be driven, when Itimonius' lofty soul was by my valor given as sacrifice to destiny. Hypericus' strong son, that dwelt in Elis and fought first in our contention. We foraged as proclaimed foes a wondrous wealthy boot, and he, in rescue of his herds, fell breathless at my foot. All the Dorp boars with terror fled. Our prey was rich and great. Twice 25 flocks of sheep, as many herds of neat, as many goats and nasty swine, and 150 mares, all sorrel, most with suckling foals. And these soon moneyed wares we drove into Neleus town, fair Pylos, all by night. My father's heart was glad to see so much good fortune quite. was glad to see so much good fortune quite the forward mind of his young son, that used my youth in deeds, and would not smother it in moods. Now drew the bright sun's steeds light from the hills, our heralds now. He's still telling the story. Okay. Let's double check this word. Hold on. ACCITED. I assume it means something like to be made aware of. Okay, excited or summoned. Oh, okay, it's an antiquated way of spelling excited, but it's spelled ACCITED. I guess I see the logic in that. It's always interesting reading these older, translations of the Iliad, because you see a lot of great, rare words. In deeds, and would not smother it in moods. Now drew the sun's bright steeds light from the hills. Our heralds now excited all that were and damaged by the Ilians. Our princes did appear, our boot was parted. Many men's the Epeans much did owe. Our princes did appear, our boot was parted. Many men the Epeans much did owe, that, being our neighbors, they did spoil. Our neighbors' afflictions did they spoil. Afflictions did so flow on us. They spoil. Afflictions did so flow on us poor Pylians, though but few. In break great Hercules to our sad confines of late years, and wholly did suppress our hapless princes. Twice 6 sons renowned Neleus bred. Only myself am left to tell, the rest subdued and dead. And this was it that made so proud the base Epean bands on their near neighbors, being oppressed to lay injurious hands. A herd of oxen for himself, a mighty flock of sheep, my sire selected and made choice of shepherds for their keep. And from the general spoil he culled 300 of the best. The Ilians ought him infinite, most plagued of all the rest. 4 wager-winning horse he lost, and chariots intervened. Being led to an appointed race. The prize that was presented was a religious 3-foot urn. Augeas was the king that did detain them, and dismissed their keeper sorrowing for his loved charge lost with foul words. Then, both for words and deeds, my sire, being worthily incensed, thus justly he proceeds to satisfaction, in first choice of all our wealthy prize. And, as he shared much he left his subjects to suffice, that none might be oppressed with power, or want his portion due. Thus, for the public good we shared. Then we to temples drew our complete city, and to heaven we thankful rites did burn for our rich conquest. The 3rd day, ensuing our return, the Ilians flew on us in heaps. Their general leaders were the 2 Moliones, 2 boys, untrained in the fear of horrid war or use of strength. Moliones. All right, let's use this as a chance to check these names. Alpheus, Thriessa, Minerva, obviously. Minius, Minius. Okay. I don't think I ever thought about how long Book 11 is. I think this is the third session that I've done Book 11 of. The third day ensuing our return, the Ilians flew on us in heaps. The general leaders were the two for our rich conquest. The third day ensuing our return, the Ilians flew on us in heaps. Their general leaders were the two Molianes, two boys untrained in the fear of horrid war or use of strength. A certain city shines upon a lofty prominent, and in the extreme confines of sandy Pylos, seated where Alpheus flood doth run, and called Thriessa. This they sieged, and gladly would have won, but, having passed through all our fields, Minerva, as our spy, fell from Olympus in the night, and armed us instantly. Nor mustered she unwilling men, nor unprepared for force. My sire yet would not let me arm, but hid away my horse, esteeming me no soldier yet. Yet shined I nothing less amongst our gallants, though on foot. Minerva's mightiness led me to fight, and made me bear a soldier's worthy name. There is a flood falls into sea, and his crooked course doth frame. There is a flood falls into sea, and his crooked course doth frame, close to Arena, and is called bright Minius stream. There made we halt. Arena, and is called bright Minius stream. There made we halt, and there the sun cast many a glorious beam on our bright armors. Horse and foot in seed together there. Then we marched on. By fiery noon we saw the sacred clear of great Alpheus, where to Jove we did fair sacrifice, and to the azure god that rules under the liquid skies. We offered up a solemn bull, a bull to Alpheus' name, and to the blue-eyed maid we burned a heifer never tame. Now was it night, we supped and slept about the flood in arms. The foe laid hard siege to our town and shook it with alarms. But for prevention of their spleens, a mighty work of war appeared behind them. For as soon as Phoebus' fiery car cast night's foul darkness from his wheels, invoking reverend Jove, and the unconquered maid his birth, we did the event approve, and gave them battle. First of all I slew, the army saw, the mighty soldier Mulius, Augeas' son-in-law. Agamede. Okay. The army saw the mighty soldier Mulius, Augeas' son-in-law, and spoiled him of his one-hoofed horse. His eldest daughter was bright Agamede, that for skill in simples did surpass, and knew as many kind of drugs as earth broads, as many kind of drugs as earth's broad center bred. Him I charged with my brass-armed center bred. Him charged I with my brass-armed lance. The dust received. Broad center bred. Him charged I with my brass-armed lance. The dust received him dead. The dust received him dead. I, leaping to his chariot, amongst the foremost pressed, and the great-hearted Ilians. Ilians. I might have done it wrong in one of those, but I'll catch it on the next checking pass. Foremost pressed, I, leaping to his chariot, amongst the foremost pressed, and the great-hearted Ilians fled, frighted, seeing their best and loftiest soldier taken down, the general of their horse. I followed like a black whirlwind, and did for prize and force full 50 chariots, every one furnished with 2 armed men, who ate the earth, slain with my lance. And I had slaughtered then the 2 young boys, Moliones, if their world-circling sire, great Neptune, had not saved their lives, and covered their attire with unpierced clouds. Then Jove bestowed a hearty victory upon us Pylians. And I had slaughtered then the 2 young boys Moliones, if their world-circling sire, great Neptune, had not saved their lives, and covered their attire with unpierced clouds. Then Jove had not covered their attire with unpierced clouds, had not saved their lives, and covered their attire with unpierced clouds. Then Jove bestowed a haughty victory upon us Pylians. Then Jove bestowed a haughty victory upon us Pylians. For so long we did the chase apply, slaughtering and making spoil of arms, till sweet Buprasius soil. Buprasius. Elysius. Olinia. Then Jove bestowed a haughty victory upon us Pylians. For so long we did the chase apply, slaughtering and making spoil of arms, till sweet Buprasius soil, Elysius and Olinia were famed with our recoil. For there Minerva turned our power, and there the last I slew, as when our battle joined. The last I slew, as when our battle joined the first.